I was so smarting about the way Mom made me feel so fragile, so the first thing that came to my mind was how fragile she'd get if she saw a toady frog big and round as this one. Like most real good ideas, this one didn't come to us right off. One thing led to another, and after a while, me and Cooter came up with this plan that got Toady Frog's and Ma and her schooling basket together. In the Sabbath school, Mr. Travis is always telling us that the Lord loves laughter, and what would be funnier than watching Ma reach down into her basket and getting a surprise? After supper, I wrapped the Toady Frog in the sweater Ma had been working on and put it in her knitting basket and ran across the road to hide in the drainage ditch with Cooter. Then, just like they always do, Ma and Pa came down and sat in their rockers on the stoop, getting ready to do some relaxing. They were laughing and carrying on. Ma put her schooling basket in her lap. She took her knitting spectacles out of the basket, then closed it to make a quick point about something with Pa. She acted like she was set to reach into her knitting out, but stopped at the last instant to slap at Pa's arm. She even set the basket on the floor, and doggone it all, it seemed to her like Pa weren't gonna Pa weren't gonna get nothing done but talking and laughing. I was this close to losing my mind. Finally, Ma put the basket back in her lap and reached in. She knowed right off that something was wrong because the Toady Frog added to it. Her sweater weighed about 5 pounds more than the last time she touched it. She twisted her head to one side to look at Pa and unwrap the Toady Frog. It dropped smack down into her lap and froze up for about 1 second, and then jumped straight out into the rocker. Yarn and needles and buttons and the Toady Frog and the half-knit sweater flew up over the stoop like your guts after a hoop snake bite. Bite spelled weird. Ma's knitting spectacles jumped partway up her forehead, and she started hopping up and down, slapping her skirt like it was a fire. And the whole time she didn't scream or say a word. The funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Me and Cooter about died peeking out of the side of the ditch. That can't be good for you. To try and keep a laugh inside, but I was this close to busting clean apart. Ma heard us trying to smother our laughs down and stared across the road. She looked like she was fixing to say something. Her mouth opened and shut over and over. No words come out. She walked all the way shaken into the house. Pa called over to me and Cooter. Don't y'all move. He set Ma's rocker and collected back up her knitting tools and put them back in the basket. He picked up the Toady Frog and brung him across the road right at me and Cooter. He set down the Toady Frog and shook his head and said, Now, Elighah, you and me and Cooter all thought that was really funny to see your Ma and the Toady Frog ain't likely to see the whole side of the same story. Me and Cooter tried to keep serious faces while Pa was talking, but tears were just rolling down both of our cheeks. Pa said, Past a word or two, I don't think the Toady Frog's gonna cause you no grieving, but your Mom, he whistled down low and long. She's a whole nother story. So you wished out there rolling about a ditch enjoying tormenting you, 'cause your Ma and that Toady Frog. Why don't you save us some trouble and go in them woods and break off whichever switch it is you wants her to beat you with, because you know the next time it's gonna happen. And next time you is gonna see her in the same room together, that's what's gonna happen. Cooter, said Pa, today's your lucky day, son. You is about to get 2 shows for the price of 1. If you thought that was funny, just wait till you see how Elighah starts whooping and screaming once his Ma lays that switch on his behind. Pa smiled and walked away. Me and Cooter had run a near mile before we figured out we were far enough away to let our lips wrap out. And rip out they did. I never laughed so hard. We felt all over ourselves. We couldn't barely stand up. We rolled and rolled about the way Ma looked, and when she opened the sweater, ha ha ha, when she couldn't, we couldn't neither of us get a whole sentence out. Did you see the way? I commented out, choking. Cooter said, and the way she, and started pulling in the grass and slapping around. Then I said, I never knew Mom could jump up so, and the laughing closed my throat up. Once me and Cooter were laughing out our comments were done. Walking home, things changed. The gloom started creeping over me the same way. Clouds all over with the sun start sliding over a full moon. Cooter was whistling and still laughing every once in a while. Doggone it all, how unfair was this whole commotion turning out to be. He'd just gotten as much fun from everything that has happened as I did. But it looked like I was going to be the only one doing any paying for the enjoying. I started working up a good apology and filled up with lots of sincereness for my mom. When I got home, Ma didn't say a word. She must have thought the whole thing was too embarrassing and couldn't see no way of bucking me without bringing up the subject. So she let it go. I gotta say, I'm real proud of Ma, 'cause the good way she took the toad frog joke. Sorry. Because of the way she took the toadity frog joke. It's funny just when you think you can admire your folks for no more than you already do, and then something happens that lets you know you're wrong. 2 days later, I got back from helping Mr. Leroy down and Mr. Holton's hand. Ma and Pa were sitting in the stoop, and Ma was working a sweater that Pa whistled away. She must have baked a cookie. The cookie jar was sitting twist them. She said, How Mr. Leroy doing? He's good, ma'am. You stop and give my regards to Mrs. Holton? Yes, ma'am. She told me to ask about you. Mrs. Brown came by and asked if you was gonna go fishing tomorrow. Yes, ma'am, right after my stable chores. She had done some baking too. She was hoping to trade for some of those big perch. It weren't Ma that baked. It was Mrs. Brown. It was made in the baking cookie jar It made the baking in the cookie jar a lot more interesting. What'd she bake, Ma? She reached down and picked up the cookie jar and said, You know about Mrs. Brown, Elijah, is always trying something new. She baked some sugar cookies and some kind of new cookie she called. Ma was knitting over her spectacles. Oh, Spencer, I must be getting old. I can't recall what she said it was. Can you?